The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus, filled with the power of the Spirit, came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. He went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom, and read from the prophet Isaiah. The eyes of all were fixed on him. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. They said, "Is not this Joseph's son?" And Jesus said to them, "Doubtless you will quote to me this proverb, 'Doctor, cure yourself.' And you will say, 'Do here also in your hometown the things that we heard you did at Capernaum.' And he said, 'Truly I tell you, no prophet is accepted in his hometown. But the truth is, there were many widows in Israel in the time of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, and there was a severe famine over all the land. Yet Elijah was sent to none of them, except to a widow at Zarephath in Sidon. There were also many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman the Syrian." When they heard this, all in the synagogue were filled with rage. They got up, drove Jesus out of the town, and led him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they might hurl him off the cliff. But Jesus passed through the midst of them and went on his way. The Gospel of the Lord. As most of you are aware, St. Peter's Church has been closed for about 3.5 years now. If you were to go into the church, which is kept securely locked, you would find all the pews are gone. Most of them, 2/3 or more, to the new and beautiful Church of St. Paul in Bas-Caraquet, a church built after their church was burnt to the ground in an act of arson. And the others you would find in the chapel of Divine Mercy Catholic School. You would find no Stations of the Cross on the walls. They're here, on the walls of this church. You would find the fittings at the front are all gone. Virtually all of the statues, except 2 that are so high up that special equipment would be needed or will be needed to get them out of there. You would find half of the stained glass windows, more or less, are gone. Also, well, in several places, but mostly to the Church of St. Paul in Bas-Caraquet. And soon the others will be taken out, at least now, for safekeeping. What you would find that is still there is the beautiful Cassavant pipe organ. And we have made a decision as a finance council of Holy Redeemer Parish to engage a professional from Nova Scotia, an organ builder and repairer, to come up with a team to disassemble the pipe organ, to box it properly, and to store it in, a railway car. And then it will be taken from there and kept in a yard a little outside the city of St. John until we're able to determine what else can happen with it. Hopefully by the end of the winter, the church then, once the organ has been removed and the last windows taken out, and hopefully those statues. The church will be disassembled, taken down. It's not an inexpensive project. It's a very expensive project. Because of that, we're not able to commit right now to what will happen afterward with the organ. But it is our hope that eventually that organ will be able to be properly cleaned and repaired and whatever needs to be done, and then assembled here in this church, obviously a slightly different configuration, but we've been told that there is sufficient room and that this church would have good acoustics for it. It's not inexpensive, but it's 1/10 to 1/20 of the cost of a new Cassavant pipe organ. So if there are any out you hearing this today who love music, who love that organ, or who would like to see that organ survive and get a new life in this church rather than being sold eventually to who knows where, I would encourage you to think about that. And we will be coming at a certain point looking for assistance with that. And hopefully maybe some of you will say that's something I could put some money behind. An organ I've loved that can find new life in this church, remain in our city, in our diocese, all working like new, a beautiful instrument and a beautiful piece of even the woodwork around it. So I leave that to you, something for you to think about.